Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to In Touch STEM. I am Dr. Olufade. Today, I am privileged and honored to be talking with Dr. Jamie Green, Ph.D. Dr. Green is an urban agriculturalist. She's also a global STEAM educator and a cultural economist. She is so modest, she considers herself an urban ag evangelist and a cultural economist, helping build the BIPOC community's capacity to achieve equitable wealth in sustainable industries such as food, energy, water, and waste management. Dr. Green is a co-founder of Think and Grow Farm. They launched TNG to address food scarcity in West Philadelphia. Their company is helping West Philadelphians go from consumers to producers for more equitable local economy. Their company repurposes technology in an effective way in meeting these needs. They empower youth to gravitate towards using technology to find solutions in agriculture and farming. They educate the BIPOC community on how to use technology to create circular economy, which allow the community to reuse waste product and build sustainability in their community. They advocate for economical strategy that is inclusive. A key to success in the 21st century economy. She believes you don't get money for people's poverty without including them in the strategy. And I totally agree with you, Dr. Green. So today we're talking about the nexus between STEM and farm, the BIPOC community, especially the African American community. Dr. Green, welcome to my show.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Green, can you please tell us, share with my audience who you are and what you do?
Certainly. My name is Jamie Green. I have the pleasure and the honor of being a cognitive psychologist who focuses on STEM learning for children of color, particularly children of the African diaspora. I served for 15 years as the lead of STEM education for Temple University's College of Engineering. And prior to founding Think and Grow Farm, we were moving our STEM education initiatives through the K-12 community across Pennsylvania and then across the United States, and then a couple of other countries that introduced STEM as a sustainability opportunity. My co-partner and my life partner is Mark Green. We founded Think and Grow Solutions in 2019. It is actually the holding company for Think and Grow Farms, which is an indoor ag tech vertical farming company that also focuses on food preservation, dehydration, freeze drying, anything we can do to save more food and bring it to the marketplace. Our nonprofit is called Creative TechWorks Design Studio, which is the technical training arm for teaching young people about sustainability.
Dr. Green, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. When we talk about farm, it's really economically, but the share of Black farmers have declined significantly over the last century. Do you want to elaborate?
It's not only a horrific decline, it's also a disgrace to our ancestors, because my family lineage goes to the Mende tribe in Sierra Leone. So we've tracked our family lineage, and the Mende, among many different tribes who were brought from West Africa, were the rice growers. So our family and my husband's family actually have connections to my husband, particularly to the Gullah Geechee in South Carolina, who were the indigenous people who were the rice farmers, Uncle Ben's rice, etc. What has happened is that in the last 100 years, you've seen farmers of African descent who have lost nearly 13 million acres of land to very dubious policies and practices that have been acknowledged by the United States government through USDA, poor lending. There's absolutely no way that people who had that history and lineage suddenly forgot how to grow anything. So they have lost a tremendous amount of land, and land access, I think, has become the number one reason why when you look at the work that we do, we're focusing on indoor farming, which allows us to repurpose indoor buildings, real estate to grow indoors. If they won't let us grow outdoors, we will grow indoors. But it takes STEM learning, the science and the technology of building indoors, that allows us to give African farmers a new opportunity. And I think that that's it. So we look at the history, we look at the past, but we also have to continue to look towards the future. How do we turn this situation around?
So let's talk about the Nexus in STEM and agriculture. So when I think about tilling the land,
Yes. Now, which nation are you from?
I am from Nigeria.
So we have business relationships in Kaduna, Nigeria, with growers
awesome.
there.
I know that recently you traveled to South Africa, and
Yeah.
I would love if you don't mind sharing with our audience what you were doing in South Africa and Nigeria. When we think about culture, I often think about killing them, but it's much more than that, correct? And especially as it pertains to STEM, correct?
Correct. I think again, I want to provide the context. In the United States, we have a history of being forced to use our skill sets, which were scientific in a different level when we were just in an agrarian economy, where it was just farming meant that you tilled the land. We talk about sharecroppers. We talk about people who work for other people to make land productive. When you talk about, you look at the entire diaspora and you look at what's happening on the continent in particular, we're talking about a move that includes food growing, which is 1/3 of what crops are used for. The majority of crops are grown for manufacturing. And many people do not know that. 1/3 of land of food that's grown is for human consumption. The rest is for manufacturing, either cattle, you're growing food to feed cattle, to feed animals, etc. And so when you look at that 30% and you say, okay, 30% and the population growth is expanding and we have climate change issues, you need young people who understand everything from oceanography, what's happening to the oceans because the tides are rising as the world warms up. You need young people who can understand geospatial, where are the hectares that need to be watered. Yeah. And so you need young people who understand drone technology to fly the drones to get these scans. You need the scientists. We need botanists who understand how the seed genetics are changing. So there's a wide variety of opportunities between what we call farming, but for the young people, I now call it agritech and agribusiness because they don't want to be considered farmers. But you see a drone, an agricultural drone in the sky there. And what's happening on the continent, again, I'm going to keep referring to that, is the world population is growing. The memo has gone out for people to repopulate the African continent. So I've been to West Africa, East Africa, North Africa, and now South Africa. And what I see is people from around the world investing in R&D to put land into production on the continent. And so anyone who's listening to this, I want to encourage people to consider certainly having a base here in the US, but the rest of the world is all over the continent. Africa currently has about 1 billion people. It has the capacity to feed up to 4 billion. So people are coming in, buying up the continent, moving in, building commercial farms, doing bio-innovation is coming out of Sweden, which is looking at the energy and how to help smallholder farmers use basic technologies all the way up to massive commercial farmers who can produce hundreds of tons in smaller amounts of land, fewer hectares. So the opportunity is absolutely on the continent. And I would say that technology is a pathway between across the Atlantic at this point.
It's a great opportunity in places like Africa and even Asia. But your focus right now is in Africa. I see a connection between STEM and being an entrepreneur, just like you
Absolutely.
are. Correct? Am I right?
Absolutely. There's absolutely no doubt that agribusiness, agri-technologies have swept the nation. And in the United States, there's a huge investment that is mirrored around the world. And the idea is that we have to produce more food for the growing population, but to grow outside, you have to have a certain set of skills or be a part of a team. And for those of us who have studied history and culture, you figure out what team works best for the time that you're in so that you can go into the future. The teams of the current day right now must have STEM as a foundation. And that's basic biology. That's basic chemistry. If we're talking about sowing the land, some of the best farmers that I know are a group of women in Tanzania who have figured out, which seed and which strips for cassava or for different types of plants are best in what soil. Soil health, in spite of the technology, it still comes down to soil health. You need a microbial background and a substrate in the soil. You need healthy living soil to grow the majority of food, because indoor farming cannot replace outdoor farming. And I would say is that our partnership here, what the Green family has done here in the United States is we've built 2 training facilities, one in Chester, Pennsylvania, one in North Philadelphia that opens on Friday coming.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Well, it's part of a team, and I'm going to keep going back to that. In our communities, there are people who have the knowledge and the skills around gardening, around growing, whether they came from the deep south in the US or whether they came from Limpopo in South Africa, or whether they come from Kaduna in Nigeria, whether they come from East Legon in Ghana, whether they come from Sierra Leone outside of Freetown and Bo, wherever you are, whatever your history, there are people who know how to grow food. What is challenging us is, can you grow food as the environment changes? So we need the people who understand how to apply the technology to this environmental changes that are happening.
Thank you. So what can I do within our to try to encourage and inspire the young generation to consider using their skill, especially in technology, in science, math, in engineering, to further their career as a culture?
Well, it's a great question, because the foundation for a community that has been traditionally marginalized as high poverty is that this is the richest opportunity right now. If you can provide your own food, your own energy, your clean water, then you are a walking gold mine in any community in the world right now. And what is happening is, when we start looking at agriculture as an economic driver, it allows us to bring any and everyone along, because everyone's starting at the ground floor right now. What we tend to do is we start with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. These are the global 17 goals to lift people out of poverty, but to provide them with nutritious food, make sure people are more food secure, water secure. Everyone who's listening to this understands what's just happened, not only in Flint, but now in Jackson, Mississippi, where the infrastructure in the United States is crumbling and it needs to be repaired. So if you are talking about what we can do to make young people engage, we have really had no problem with that, because once you show them the Sustainable Development Goals, then you show that global agriculture is about a $3 trillion industry. $3 trillion is no small thing. Everyone has to eat, right?
With a lot of 12 zeros.
And so I think when we share the STEM foundation that's available and the research and development opportunities, I met a young brother who is in charge of academic development at the University of Witwatersrand, and he's out of Kenya, down in South Africa, trying to support 23 African nations growing their biotechnology and biomicroscopy programs so they can study the different insects that might be boring holes into vegetation in the ground. So it starts at just saying, listen, we need you to either pursue a degree in biology, in biotechnology, in environmental engineering. So there's a variety of college disciplines. There's also a variety of work, career, and technical training that as educators we need to focus on. Many people tend to separate STEM from career and technical education and say, oh, they're 2 different things. No, they have to blend, because the CTE students, at least in the United States, we're called CTE. On the continent, many are called trade and vocational technical education. So those 2 pathways into the future easily morph and blend in agriculture. And so what has happened with the hands-on experiences needs to morph with the theoretical and the research component to produce new products, produce new more opportunities, and solve some problems that are, again, the UN Sustainable Development Goals for the planet. So I think once you tie children into being superheroes and problem solvers, and that they can get paid for doing both, I think this is what agribusiness and agriculture means to me now, going into the 21st century.
So you travel worldwide. So especially now, what is the perception of agriculture and STEM in Africa as compared to the United States?
At the university level, it's dynamic. You have people from, as I said, Sweden, USAID, USDA, the UK's SID. Everyone is investing on the continent because, again, if African diaspora doesn't understand one thing, it's that the rest of the world is going to take the continent. So I would say that
That's scary.
well, it's reality, right? It's practicality. We have around the world trying to move to places to get more education, which is phenomenal. But we're missing the fact that everyone else got their education and they're not going home. They're going to the continent where there's more resources than anywhere else on the world. So when we flew to South Africa, there were a majority Europeans flying on a huge jetliner, both down and back. And so I would encourage the diaspora, when you talk to your children, other countries are sending their children in to learn how to build the technology in a rapidly growing part of the world. So I would say that just exposing young people to, there's a bioinnovation initiative that's happening in Africa that's being funded by the Swedes. The Czechs are there. The Chinese, everyone knows the Chinese have built infrastructure. And, you know, when you look at a country like Nigeria, which is the most populous country on the continent and probably one of the fastest growing in the world, and you say to yourself, why are you a net food importer when you can grow everything you need?
Does not make sense.
It doesn't make any sense. So we can talk about the fact that you have so much talent and skills in the United States, from the diaspora, in the UK, in the Caribbean. So my family and we've gone to Central America, South America. I grew up my summers in Canada. So there's not a lot of places I haven't been. The only place I have not been is Europe. But, you know, I'm not feeling that lack right now, to be quite truthful.
Eventually, I'm sure eventually you will get there, but right now, priority.
Yeah, the priorities, maybe my grandchildren will get there and visit, you know, the towers, but I think even the British are going to the continent.
Wow.
So it's a moment in time where we have to recognize that the advancements in energy, there is no agriculture in the 21st century without energy. And that is a whole juggernaut. So it's food, it's energy, and it's water are the opportunities for all of our children.
When there is just 1.4% blacks in the farming, there has to be a way in which we can gauge for that number. And the number is declining.
It is declining. The productivity is declining. There have been several federal lawsuits. The United States government has acknowledged culpability within USDA for what has happened. A lot of games have been played to remove Black folks off the land. Now, again, it could be there's a different level of agriculture that we can play in. And it takes a communal thinking and it takes an understanding of history that one individual farmer. So here, our passion is, of course, our family is from the United States. We know our history here. We are not giving up our citizenship. We've earned it. And I think what is happening is we are thought leaders right now in the United States around Black folks getting into agriculture technologies, hydroponics, aquaponics, lipolization, which is freeze drying, dehydration. These are our, I think that's a picture of the inside of one of our shipping containers.
I went to your website and I showcased the things that you're doing.
Okay. So we grow indoors and we own 2 shipping container farms. We own the 2 facilities that we established in North Philly. And these are, you know, this is just the technologies that you have to use to teach people how to grow indoors. So this is actually not the best form factor, but it's a great training tool to have to grow this kind of food. And this is what we've grown. In West Philly, we are at the
beautiful.
It is, and it tastes just as good as it looks.
Yeah, I want to eat it.
Well, this is the opportunity. When you're talking about agriculture technologies, what I want to share in terms of farming is that Mark and I decided to activate these 2 shipping container farms during COVID, really because we were going to train college students to do this. And everyone was on lockdown, so we learned to go and do it. So we can actually build these systems ourselves. So COVID gave us the time and space to learn how to do some of this. So we are growing using what we call recirculating water systems. And recirculating water, you provide the nutrients that the plants need to grow. They grow very quickly inside without any insect damage, et cetera. And so what we've done is recognizing that water access is declining. We are using technologies like, this is the first one that you'll get, is a nutrient film technique, produce plants inside faster. You can grow maybe 3 to 4 cycles of a crop versus once a year. So there are efficiencies, there are just opportunities to use the technology in creative ways, and you can do a salad mix based on what people prefer. So my father, who raised me, is from Jamaica, and much of what we eat is callaloo, is part of our national dish, right? Ackee and saltfish and callaloo. So we can grow callaloo at the same time we're growing romaine, we're growing different, I think the Chinese call it wild spinach. On the other side, the microgreens is extremely important. We're doing research. So one of our biggest sponsors so far has been the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture.
I was going to mention that.
Yeah, we've been very blessed, but also very competitive. We prepared ourselves to be able to compete to secure the resources. So we built.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. So we completed 2 preliminary projects, and one that we're working on right now is what mix of seeds can support hypertension, diabetes, high cholesterol. So there are mixes of seeds. The brassica family, like the broccolis, are good for a certain kind of health, chronic health issues. There are other microgreens, and what's happening is the short turnaround, maybe 10 to 14 days for microgreens, keeps the nutrients so densely compacted that you're eating the salads before they grow to full scale. So we are working on which varieties of mixes our company wants to put in the market to help support people who have different health challenges. Another one that we are working on very closely with some colleagues down in our Chester plant. So our Chester facility is inside the Chester Upland School District. So we have an operating private company that's on site that children can come and see. Right. They can take tours, and we're going to work with Delaware County Community College to bring college students in to do the tours.
Wow.
Thank you. So
this is a big deal.
Well, yeah, everything that I learned at Temple, it was the best thing that happened to my family was that time there. And then the best thing that's also happened is our time away, because we're now able to apply everything that we did inside a university. You've got to now bring it into the community.
So if people are interested in reaching out to you, how can they contact you?
Well, we're in the process of a website redesign. So I can say definitely people can look at our website, which is www.thinkandgrowfarms.com, just to get an insight into what we're doing. We're going to add our e-commerce, and I'm actually going to hang up with you, go down to the farmers market, because this is what we are selling in the open market now. One is freeze-dried fruits that we're extending the shelf life, and this is why it was so important for us. Again,
this is beautiful. I feel like eating it.
This is actually what it looks like, right? So we have, and you're seeing freeze-dried fruits in Aldi's, in Save-A-Lot, in ShopRite, in a lot of places. We're doing the same thing. We're just pushing it into the market, and we're going to be exporting this out of the country to other countries. So when you ask me why were we traveling, we're traveling because we're setting up business relationships in other parts of the world to ship our things to. But freeze-dried fruits, just exactly as they look, you can freeze dry them and then you can turn them into powders, right? And you're extending the shelf life. So that 30%, instead of us only having 30% and then losing some percentage of that, we want the full 30% or maybe 40% of the food to come into the market. The way you do that is to preserve the food as fast as you can, set it aside so that you have it available. So these are two of and this STEM is required to make this happen.
Yeah, I can see that.
You have to have
freeze drying them. I mean, wow.
This is an engineering dream come true. How do you preserve and save food that has still high nutritional value? So the powder supplement is the tail end of it, but what is the process for freeze drying or dehydrating? And so we have the capacity through a new partnership to process. And again, you talk about that 1.4% of farmers. People may need to move into a different part of the whole supply chain, because there are people who process food, there are people who store, warehouse, deliver, people who manufacture food. It's not just tilling the soil. There's a whole ecosystem around agribusiness that I think opens the door. Do you want to go to another slide? Because I love this.
No, that's the only slide that I have the opportunity.
Okay.
But I want to make that clear. I want to emphasize the last point that you. So when we talk about agriculture, there is so much to it, especially when you apply, right?
Absolutely.
There is so much opportunity. What about distribution? Dr. Green needs someone that will help her distribute this product. Am I wrong?
Absolutely. Entrepreneurship, again, coming out of COVID and the food insecurity, the food supply chain was absolutely broken because the majority of people in the United States in particular, 50 million children, many of them go to school to eat lunch, to eat breakfast and eat lunch.
That is absolutely correct.
And when that's right, when those systems broke down, we started talking about, the United States had to shift its entire model into a distribution model that went from farm to table. And I don't want anyone to misunderstand the importance of people who are homesteading, who are working farms. The majority of farmers in the world are Black women who are smallholder farmers, who are raising food for their family. And so I don't want to minimize that at all. But what I do want to say is that if we're going to continue to do that, there is research that's going on that shows you how to measure the soil health, so you know what seeds to use, right? It's not that everyone has to be an engineer or a super scientist. I'm not a super scientist in that way, but I do know that there are technologies that can make someone's life easier. Maybe there's a solution that you can use to stop the birds from eating off all the rice before you can get it to market. Maybe there's a solution that allows you to take a 20-foot shipping container and put an Internet of Things inside there to keep it cold so you can store your food longer, because you're not going to be able to freeze dry it anytime soon because the energy requirement is too high. So I'm just saying that every level of the food production, preservation, and distribution model has an opportunity for, just for transitioning. I am not someone who's interested in eating bugs. I know there are a lot of people who are trying to in our cultures, one thing about the diaspora, we share this. We're not eating your bugs. We're not eating black fly larvae. We're not doing that. Technology is out there saying, oh, we don't have enough food. If we use the technologies that we're talking about, whether you put a Fitbit on a cow so you can measure the growth of the muscles in the cow, right? And you use an app to track the cow or the goat value before you walk it all the way to market. That's as basic as somebody programming an app for the farmers to use to measure their, is it worth it? If my cow's going to lose 2 pounds on the walk to the market, maybe I should only take half the cow and then just sell it at a higher value. You know what I mean? So
Right.
it's applying our common sense before people start making stuff that none of us wants to eat.
Your product, are they genetically engineered or natural?
No. These are organic fruits that we secure. So we are still in that organic, high density, high nutritious, what we would eat. And if as far as we know, we are using hybrid. The only seed modifications that we're aware of that people are using are the seeds that are specific to a particular region.
Okay.
So they've grown up over years in that region, so they've been used. But no, we normally are sourcing we don't grow all this fruit. That's what I'm saying. There's still such a need for people who grow the food.
Absolutely.
We just need to put more in the marketplace. So we are tending towards organic as much as we can.
So I just want to thank you, Dr. Green, because you took the time to educate us about your company, Think and Grow Farm. Thank you so much for what you do within our community,
It's my
even
honor.
across Africa, because God knows we do need every help. Any final word, Dr. Green, that you want to share with our audience?
I just want to share that the work that my family is doing, any family can get together and think about how to do this. I want to completely echo that. Again, you don't have to have an advanced degree. We found our lineage that this is who we were, and this is what we know how to bring into the future. George Washington Carver, it was interesting, a man from Belgium and then another man from Iran. We were in a panel, and both of them acknowledged that George Washington Carver was probably the greatest agriculturalist that the United States produced in the 20th century. Most people do not know who, they think he's the peanut butter man, but he was the man who saved American manufacturing because he identified the crops that could be used and turned into materials that Henry Ford then used to help build his cars.
Seriously?
So R&D, materials research, again, that's 70% of how crops are being used to make products, and then make products that are biodegradable. that don't harm the environment. That's the future for our children to own and grasp. Go and read more about George Washington Carver. Go and study more, because again, you had people, these are white males from outside the United States, pointing to who this African American man was and what he did. They know it. We don't know enough about who and what we are. And I think, again, know the history of who you are. If you don't know the history, you can't go into the future. You're stuck in the past. So I just want to give a salute to George Washington Carver as the greatest agriculturalist the United States ever produced. And he was an African American man. So let's keep working, people.
Thank you so much, Dr. Green, for your time, for the opportunity.
My pleasure.
To talk to you about the nexus with farming and STEM.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.